Hi, guys. Welcome back to your favorite pickleball podcast. We're talking PPA Grand Slams, MLP Daytona, drops, drafts, everything in between. And we first want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Pro XR, the official paddle of MLP, the only paddle custom fit for your grip. Knockaround, the official sunglasses of MLP, quality shades that won't break the bank. And Aura Organic, the official nutrition partner of Major League Pickleball. Transform your health with plant-based nutrition today. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Mish McMahon, one of the voices of Major League Pickleball, former Michigan volleyballer. I'm aspiring to be drafted in the Challenger League one day. As always, the infamous four-time Survivor contestant, former pro cyclist. He looks like he's joining us from heaven if you have the video on YouTube. He's got the angel wings behind him. He is Tyson Apostle joining us. And he was in Mesa for the PPA Grand Slam. We're going to talk about all the upsets that happened. And back with us this week, gracing us with his presence, Casey Patterson. Thank you for coming back from Mexico, sir. We missed you.
I didn't die in Mexico.
He didn't die, and as far as we know, he didn't go to jail. Those are the two rules in our family.
Yes.
Don't die, don't go to jail. Certainly not Mexican jail. You don't want to do that. But Casey, welcome back. And gentlemen, fun to be reunited as a group here on this one. Let's dive in with the PPA Grand Slam in Arizona, Mesa, Arizona, home of Tyson Apostle. You were there. Let's start with the big upset. I know Annalie Waters will thank us for this. She put it out on Twitter that she can't wait to see what social media says on the upset.
I think that was a mistake to put it out on social media like that.
Well, it got like 16,000 likes or something. It was genius in that
Maybe
way.
Not then.
But recap it for those of us who weren't there to see it in person. What happened? What did you see? And then obviously we can get everybody up to speed on the gold medalists, which ended up being Riley Newman and Anna Bright, the new partnership there. So things got interesting in mixed doubles.
Yeah. So I went there on that day that they lost. They didn't even get into, I think they were playing to get into the semifinals. Mm-hmm. And I had been around all day. I was at the Fila Lounge, hanging out with all the Fila people, and I kind of was bouncing around the courts a little bit, and I was on my way out. I had to run to pick my mom up. She's in town for the weekend. That's why I have a different backdrop than normal. And because she's in the office, in
looks
the guest
like
room
Halos.
/ office.
Literally does. If you don't have visual, that's what it looks like.
And it's pretty fitting. My last name's Apostle. So I'm standing there and I'm kind of chit-chatting with a friend at the entrance / exit / transition to where the players' lounge is. And in the stadium court, all of a sudden I hear a huge, like the audience just goes, oh, like a huge reaction from the audience. And I look up at the scoreboard. I can see the scoreboard from where I'm standing. And Ben Johns and Annalie Waters had just lost. And I was like, wow. Not even the finals. Obviously, you get like it doesn't necessarily matter if you make the finals or not, because the draws can always be different, and maybe you're playing the best team earlier in the event.
Right.
So I look at that. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Also, probably good for the sport to shake it up a little bit, And I am standing there, and I see Annalie kind of like walk off pretty quickly towards the players' lounge, because you have to kind of walk through this commons area and then out the entrance, down the sidewalk, and then hang a right into the building. So there's a lot of time there. And I know Annalie, like friends / acquaintances, and her mom, Lee, and she walks past, and I kind of make eye contact with her a little bit. Like, is this a moment to say hi or to not say hi? To dip my head like I don't see her, to let her just have her moment. And I decided, what would I want if I were in that position? And I would want no one to talk to me. So I kind of went on with my conversation, pretended like I didn't really necessarily see Annalie pass, and let her carry on her way and to do her thing. Her parents followed shortly after, kind of chasing her down and kind of talking amongst themselves. And then Ben Johns and Colin Johns, scampering quickly behind him, exited past me. Same thing. I know Ben. He knows me. Do I say hi? No, I don't. I'm like, let him, like, He's obviously probably a little bugged. Like, that sucks, especially if you expect to win every time. And Colin gave me a real long look, though. Like, I almost said hi to Colin because I was like, he didn't lose. His brother lost, who always wins, but he's following quickly behind him in his corner. And I was like, no, it's best to just let that party continue on to the players' lounge to do whatever they got to do. So a little tense, a little awkward for me, but also I think I handled it very well by dipping my face with the brim of my baseball cap as soon as I crossed eye contact with him.
That's funny.
So fun. Every time we'd be in like the players' stand on our tour, we'd look up and we knew everyone's faces, whether they won or lost. We knew all their mannerisms. And then it was always came down to the villain, the guy that nobody liked. He was like, this was his job. He'd be like, did you guys win? Like, across the tent. So they had to answer it. And he loved making it so awkward. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to smash everything in front of me and destroy it. Oh, it's the worst when someone asks, hey, how'd it go? You're like, oh, don't ask me. You saw. Right.
Yeah. Smart.
That's the
Shout
worst.
out to JW and George Johnson, by the way. They deserve some kudos. And you can't win everything, Like, that's what, like, as pickleball gets more competitive, it's going to be shaking things up left and right. I mean, it makes it more fun when there's different people in the mix, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think
that's
that's
the drama.
Yeah, and that's always been the beauty of MLP is it forces those players who stick together to branch out a little bit. Obviously, if I'm number one guy in the world, who am I calling to be my mixed doubles partner? Probably number one female in the world. And why wouldn't she accept? Because we're going to win almost everything. Mm-hmm. And so to have MLP come in and be like, that's not always going to be the case. Now there's strategy and actually picking partners based on who's available.
And the interesting segue, which we'll get to in just a moment if we're not ready to go there now, because we have a couple more upsets to get to, but the MLP implications of this, especially when it comes to new players on the cusp, is that much more interesting. But we would be remiss if we continued on the PPA Grand Slam conversation and didn't acknowledge Federico Staxrud taking down Ben Johns as well in the singles category. Jay DeVilliers was second, James Ignatowicz got bronze. What do you make of the men's singles draw there, Tyson?
Well, I was watching the PPA coverage on the stuff that I wasn't able to make in person, and I've heard that Ben Johns is playing with a new paddle, trying out something brand new, and maybe this is his first time playing competitively with it. And obviously there is some adjustment if you have a new paddle or some whatever new materials you have. So that could have played into it, certainly. Although Staxrud was on fire. If you caught the finals between him and Jay, not even close.
It was like 11-11 nothing, right?
Yeah.
11-2, 11-0.
And he just stepped on the gas and went. And so you have to assume, like, maybe something was going on with Ben a little bit. I mean, he still walked away with a trophy, but he didn't get the Triple Crown. And but Federico was just on another level in singles. And so it was very interesting to see that. And also, the fans' reaction. I don't think it's necessarily like, when you see people win all the time, everything, and it's nice to see them lose a little bit too.
Yes.
Right?
For a long time, I would show up to matches and they would be cheering on everything the other team did just because we were always the one seed and like, they're sick of us winning. Not to humble brag, but like it is like that.
They're sick of us winning.
It gets to the point where everyone wants the underdog to win. And when someone's dominant for that long, I think Ben, in his defense as well, talk about the amount of film and video that people have on him to be able to study coming in new to the game, where he's got maybe minimal or very, very few amounts of footage to watch these other guys play. I think this just gets harder and harder to maintain at the top because mentally it's tough to consistently turn that switch over. It takes more and more to flip that switch of turning into a super competitor where I'm going to just be totally dominant. It takes more people in the crowd. It's like a bigger event, more more money on the line. It just takes more and more because he's been doing it for so long that you get, not that you're bored, but you just get a little to find new
complacent.
things. Yeah, well, you just have to find new like things for your mind to focus on. Like, like Jordan. Like I did a lot of those things where I'd make up stories in my mind so that I'd stay competitive and angry and on edge. Because I'd be like, oh my gosh, do I really have to play again? Like,
So Casey's on the road. He's on his phone because he doesn't have his computer with him. And so he is telephoning in this episode. We tried to keep it a secret as much as possible. But, we're just going to let you know. He is away from his computer on his phone. But we can hear you now, Casey. And maybe that got recorded and I'm going to look the fool because the people be like, Tyson's ears were broken. Casey said that so perfectly clear.
By the way, Federico Staxrud on the California Black Bears.
Yeah.
So if you're Dylan Frazier, Maggie Brashaw, Andrea Coop, you're looking at Fed saying, okay, that'll give us a nice little boost as we look into MLP Daytona.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. I also think the other thing with the PPA that I was looking at, and this will kind of lead us into our second half of the conversation here, is that Ryan Sherry, who is not known for doubles, really. He plays doubles, but you don't see him that often. He doesn't get highlighted playing doubles. He was out there mixing it up in gendered doubles and mixed doubles with some great partners. And I saw him at the course. I was like, hey, are you playing a lot of doubles here? Is this to kind of show MLP what you're made of? He's like, yeah, I can play doubles. It's not that I can't play doubles. It's that I, excel at singles. And that's the thing with Major League Pickleball. Like you need to be the full package. And it started, me thinking like the supplemental draft for Challenger League is coming up. The deadline is coming up to get your applications in as a player and for teams to decide which players they are dropping for their roster. And I have to assume that this weekend is maybe the most paramount leading up to that with the supplemental draft coming up in less than 2 weeks. There's a lot of pressure for people on the cusp of either losing their position on a team or hopefully pushing one of those people out to gain a position on a team when you weren't drafted to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that added pressure do to these players on the cusp there? Is that something you think that is on their mind as they're heading into their event here this weekend or this past weekend?
Yeah. I think so. And I think we've seen quite a few stocks rise just in the early competition because obviously with the first Major League Pickleball event, we got just a preview. And now that with a couple of PPA events under our belts, it's like you see the difference. And like Elise Jones comes to mind for me of somebody that continues to raise her level and her craft and just get more notoriety around the Major League Pickleball. But as it relates to the Challenger League, absolutely. If I'm a player right now, I'm doing anything in my power to put myself in the position against the best players in the world to get noticed. And what a better opportunity than to do it at these tournaments. It's fun. It's fun to see, especially at the top, things getting mixed up. But then when you have that, next layer of talent coming to the surface, I think it's an incredible opportunity. How about for you? What do you think? And maybe who, in your opinion, stock has risen the most when it comes to looking at the Major League Pickleball? Is there anyone we should be watching that we haven't heard about recently? Anybody in your mind that you think is going to be swept up?
Well, I mean, that's the trick is that we're not looking at the highest level players because they are in the Premier League and there is not a supplemental draft for the Premier League. So those 24 players are locked in.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not looking at the top 24 players or around that. So we're not looking at the top 10 from either men or women. We're looking
with the redraft,
at the layer below.
Yeah.
Unless there's somebody that's risen into that top 10 ranks that isn't even a part of anything yet. So at that point, you're looking at, the top 20 players. And is there somebody that was on that cusp that didn't get selected? I mean, again, you look at someone like Ryan Sherry, who is a top 10 in singles.
Mm-hmm.
but he's not there in doubles. He doesn't play a lot of doubles. Maybe he just needs to hone his skill level in, and then he's there. And I think that those are the type of people that are probably on the cusp that these teams are looking at. And as well, like if you are on a challenger league team and you're underperforming at the PPA this past weekend,
Mm-hmm.
like maybe there's a question mark by your name now with your team ownership, and that's where it gets really tricky, and it is a high pressure situation for these players. But there's nobody particular that comes to mind in that realm. I'm sure that these challenger league teams are paying closer attention to that skill level there in the between the top 10 and top 20 players rather than the very tippy top. And I just think that's going to be interesting, but also like because that level isn't at the forefront of all the media attention, you have to pay extra close attention. Or if you are a player that is trying to get drafted, you have to reach out. Like we had Sam Querrey on here a few weeks ago, and he said he emailed all the team owners. He was very, very active in letting people know he was present. And I think you have to do that because you're not making the headlines as a top 15. You're not.
Right.
So if you want to play challenger and have a chance at, really showcasing who you are and what you can do, you kind of have to draw attention to it yourself and then send it off to the owners and to the league, and so people can see that.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And it helps in Sam Querrey's situation. He obviously has the tennis clout where if you're just a specialized pickleball player and you don't have that yet, then maybe it's hiring a social media manager that can get your footage out there. And I don't know, in some way.
I think there has to be more, Casey. We're talking about the supplemental draft with the Challenger League is coming up at the end of this month into early March. And if you're on that like top 10 to top 20 player that's not in the Challenger League currently, what things can you do to stand out? Because you're not making the front page headlines at a pickleball tournament if you're taking 12th or 13th or 14th, but that is the skill level that you need to be in the Challenger League. So if you're Casey Patterson, if you're taking 12th at this PPA, what are you doing? And you want to play in the Challenger League? You've submitted your application for the supplemental draft. What extra things are you doing to make sure that people know you are worth switching a player out for?
Yeah, I think that you have to network really well with the other players on teams that are currently in a good position to have leverage with their owners. I think you have to become close with them and network with each other that way. And then also you have to really put yourself out there and connect with the owners, because people know if you're playing well and you're performing, it's just a matter of making sure that you know that you've been seen and heard, because that's the only way. It doesn't have to be this gnarly political situation, but you got to really push and find the guys that you play well with that maybe need to fill spots, right? And so those inner text messages and calls where teams are looking for specific players where you're like, I'm that player. I'm perfect for you and for your team. I can come in and be a role player right now.
So
but then you have to put your money where your mouth is. It's got to be hard to like break into those circles if you're,
right.
You have to
100%. But I think like for me, that's the exact situation I thrive off of, where I'm like, oh, everyone's wondering if I'm good or not. All right, we'll see. Like, because I would prefer that than no one cares if I'm on a team.
Well, it's
right.
It's better to have the opportunity to showcase what you have by actually participating in an MLP event than to have missed the opportunity because you didn't put yourself out there enough. So Casey, you're going to get the texts of the numbers of everybody on the team. Like, so let's say you're looking at the teams, you're looking at the challenger teams, and you're like, this team won. They're probably not swapping anybody somebody out because all their players are playing well right now, you're going down that list, right? Is that you have to. And then you're finding those teams that could possibly make a change, or you're like, okay, I feel like I'm a better fit for this team than this person, or than maybe these people, or I've improved enough that I've surpassed the talent level or the rating of so-and-so. And then you're texting the three of the four players on the team and leaving out the player you want to replace. What do you do?
Right? Yeah.
Seriously. Because they're going to be like, I'm sorry, I don't really want to help you. Thanks. Bye.
Well, this is kind of like the exact thing that would happen with us on our tours. Like, we'd be texting right after a tournament. There'd be big movement. And then everyone would be like, if you were in the final, there's a few couple teams on Sunday, everyone would be talking about what's happening and who's switching with who for the next event. So I think, you're immediately just messaging those captains or those people on teams have a concrete position, and you're just like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Hey, I'll move out and train with you for the next 3 weeks, or I'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. I'm coming out with everything I can to provide value in every way, along with, hey, if you can't do worse than you did last time. If you lost with that guy, at least you'll have more fun with me on the team. At least we'll make a splash, and I'll bring a social media crew, and we'll have a ton of content to post. At least we'll have that, So like that, you have to just keep selling all different angles of your value and what you can do.
Yeah, I agree. And what can you do, Casey? Let's say you're on a team. You didn't perform great at the last MLP event. Your team didn't perhaps do as well as you'd hoped, and maybe even this PPA you kind of botched it a little bit. What is your play there? If you feel like you are on the cusp of being dropped, what are the things that you now have to do to maintain your spot on the team, or do you even want to are you I'm? If I feel like there's somebody better than me for a team, I'm not going to sell them for sure. But if they come to me and they're like, hey, we just feel like this guy's better in this moment of time, hopefully things work out in the future. There is a part of me that's like, you're not wrong. But I'm bummed, obviously, but I also can't fault them because, I agree, and maybe that's just me getting old and self-aware and more mature.
I was just gonna say, I feel like not a lot of people would have that self-awareness and level of recognition.
I'm still bummed, but I
they'd
think,
be like, "What are you talking about? I'm the best."
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm the best you ever had.
I think you're gonna once again try to show that. If you are all in and you do like your team and that you guys didn't play your potential, you're trying to find as many things as possible to make the team as a whole better versus just worrying about yourself. I think having extreme ownership is huge. Hey, guys, I know I didn't play my best, but I know I can play way better. As a team, how can we all improve together? Individually, I'm going to work on these things together. Let's really fine-tune this specific scenario that happened a lot that we know is going to happen again, and let's eliminate those and just play better, and let's really see if we can ride that momentum. I think I would probably be watching a ton of film, making sure everyone knew I was very self-aware of the things I needed to work on, and then how we could be better together. And then, like you said, if I know maybe I'm just not a good fit for this team,
you go into other teams right now.
Yeah, I think you own that and say, hey guys, I know look, I just don't fit in this scenario. Let's go. Let me switch with, so-and-so on this team. I feel like I've got more value to add there, and then they could take my spot. And I mean, I think that's probably happening a lot if there's specific players who are really unhappy. If not, then I think everyone's just fighting to keep their it's like Formula One. They're just fighting for their seat. They just got to stay in that seat.
Yeah, because I was going to say that if you want to be there and you're making this huge pitch to be there, and you've done the work and the study and are convincing your team that this is the fit for you, and you get dropped, now you have only a few days to scramble to reach out to other teams. So is there a balance then for a player that's on that cusp to be talking with, because you don't want to get caught talking to other teams while you're still on a team. So that's the weird balance too, is hey guys, I don't know if I'm going to be on my team. If I am, I'm totally happy. But if not, I'm here. What is that balance like?
Right. I think initially, I mean, as humans, we're all number one thing is we're all self-interested. No matter how much of a team player we are, like, we're going to take care of ourselves first. So I think if you're showing that you're like all in on the team and making it very apparent that you're all in, I think that helps change the mindset of the team as well, because guaranteed if your team didn't play well, I can bet that not everyone could say, oh yeah, I played the best I've ever played. It's like, no, we all didn't play very well. And so I think convincing everyone that like we all have improvement to make. And so I think you got to find some sort of like gauge on how all in everyone is with you on the team, you know, because you're going to feed off that vibe and just being together as a team. You're going to kind of know if you're really in with them or you're kind of just the like fifth wheel, but you're really the fourth person. You know, it's like you'll feel that. And so I think understanding that situation with your team and maybe even your owners and be like, you guys, are we all in still? Like, if we are, we've got to really get after it. And I think getting like a gauge of that would be huge. Then because then if everyone's like, well, you know, I just don't feel like we're playing well as a team. I feel like, you know, we got some weird, I don't think anyone would say that, but if they did, then I would immediately go look for something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The writing's on the wall a little bit there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I was just going to say, I feel like it also comes down to like the training aspect of it, right? Because not everybody lives near each other. And so how much effort, if you're somebody that didn't perform well or your team didn't do well, what are you doing to show me that you're willing to train without and, you know, bring the team together? I think that would go a long way for me personally if I was an owner or a GM or a coach. Especially for some of these teams that don't necessarily have the specialized GMs or coaches or what have you. Like they're really leaning on the players a lot here too. Like the whoever you pick first usually is your go-to person. Some have more specialized personnel than others. So player reliant right now. I would take advantage of that if I were a player, to just train with whoever I'm with right now to fight for my chance to stay on and show good standing with my owners.
Especially now they have time to train together, where before it was kind of like they're thrown together and had like 2 weeks.
Right.
Now there's been time, between the last one and the next upcoming event.
Yeah.
Where they have a chance to really come together.
And if you're an owner in that situation where you're looking at your team and you're like, who am I keeping? Who am I getting rid of? Who am I like, what, who do I hope to get? Because also like this supplemental draft, you're not necessarily going to get the person who you've been watching, because maybe somebody picks them up before you get to them.
Right.
So like it's hard to make a plan that way as well. So you have to be really certain that person is not a match for your team to drop them, like really certain, because you can't be certain that you're actually going to get the person you're picking up. Sure, if it's a straight across trade and you're like, yeah, I want them for them and I'm staying at right now, and if that doesn't happen, I'm keeping this guy. That's not how it works. You have to put people up to drop them. So I think that we may see, because of that aspect, we may not see as many players dropped as we are maybe thinking we might see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they don't want to take a chance on not having at least a player of the caliber that they already have.
Correct.
To trade for someone, they're like, oh, that's even worse fit. Great.
Yeah,
that's going to be that'd be tough.
If there's
great, we have Casey. He's our only option. Great. There's no way we're winning now.
Yeah, or they're like, let's drop Casey in the hopes of getting so and so. And then somebody else picks up so-and-so, and then somebody else picks up Casey, and then they're left with me. Like, that's like, like that is a scenario that could easily play out for these owners. And I'm sure they're very aware of it. So I really think that we're not going to see that many players dropped. I think the players dropped we're going to see are the ones that either really underperformed or really don't mesh well with their team, or maybe, aren't fully in it or haven't expressed that they're fully in it. Because I think that for sure, if you're an owner and you have these people that are really proving to you that they want to be there, then, it's the Challenger League. Like, this is the first 6 months, the first 3 events is to experiment a little as a Challenger League owner to see what kind of works and what doesn't. And is it worth it more to ride or die with the team you started with? Or does it make sense to make some changes? and go from there. Because I think that, an argument could be said for either. Like trading out for a higher skilled player doesn't necessarily mean better results if the player before was bringing the energy, if they were bringing the synergy, if they were bringing all of that stuff, then that has to account for something.
Right. Yeah, I think most of your teams don't even have their identity yet. They don't really know, besides the ones that are successful and get like a springboard into success.
Right.
They immediately find it, and because everything's rolling, they find it faster. And I think the teams that are struggled or didn't really play great, they're still trying to find where their like true chemistry is and finding the flow state of who steps up when and who's taking turns, like really leading the team. So I think as an owner, you got to give them, a couple more events at least if they're not just all sick of each other.
Yeah, I agree.
A little bit of a longer leash.
So who in your opinion, Casey, is going to be one that's out for sure because they're all sick of them?
Oh my gosh.
Just kidding.
Jeez, that's like the worst question ever, right? Yeah, just calling out someone.
On the spot.
Yeah.
That's what you get for leaving us for Mexico.
I just know that right after that first event, because I went and like kind of hung out with some athletes that were on teams, I immediately was hearing stories of, this person's feels like the team isn't, great for her style of play or his style of play, or they're not like a good fit. And so there's a lot of drama there psychologically, where if that player's on a team or players and they're not stoked and all in, then the team aspect of having 4 people is so much different than just 2. It's so much different. There's so many more things. And if everyone isn't bought in on just giving everything they have, then there's just like this cloud around you. And I think some of those teams had that where, either 3 of the 4 were like, we got to get rid of this person. Or that one person is like, I'm so much better than this team. This is ridiculous. My team's terrible,
So you're jumping teams knowing you're going to get picked up somewhere else if you feel like you outperform the other 3. So my survivor brain is immediately going to, if I'm the weak link on the team, I'm going to Casey Patterson's Cirkul and complaining about other people on my team and throwing them under the bus.
Yes.
Could that have also been the part of the conversation?
Smart.
That's why you really, as an owner and as the captain or maybe the leader of the team, you have to also be aware of that and really make the call on your own more than, like, sure, if the desire's there and this and that, but like you can't like base it off of like the 3rd weakest player complaining about the 4th weakest player or vice versa or something like that.
Right.
You can't take stock in that too much and be like, well, sure, I missed a smash, but Casey doesn't have his mullet anymore. Like, come on.
Right. Yeah, I think there's so many dynamics that change with that group of people, and then also either a manager or owner that's there that might not even know much about pickleball, but they're just there to be a cheerleader. You're like, ugh, it gets weird because then the players have to step up and be like a player coach.
Yeah.
I think having a coach is massive for these teams, to be the middleman and be able to voice, be able to soundboard off frustration or whatever so that they can settle it and get better as a team. I think if not, then you just get a lot of like murmuring and behind the scenes chats that don't need to happen.
Yeah, you need someone whose only interest is the success of the entire team, because that is the best for them, which would be an owner, a manager, a coach.
Yeah.
The player on the team is going to act in self-preservation a little bit, and then it gets a little dicey and a little sticky. So that is true, and that's where these organizations are going to be more and more important and relevant to the pickleball landscape.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, leveling up all the things they provide is going to be huge.
Yeah,
I agree. I was just going to mention too, I keep going to the Premier side. Sorry, Tyson. I recognize 30 minutes later that I did not answer your question fully when you're talking about the supplement draft. But Riley Newman, just an example of 4 players and your 4th making all the difference. Obviously, Riley Newman, what team wouldn't he make a difference on? But that's a nuance here heading into MLP Daytona, which now is only a month away for us. And how different of a looking team results wise, and also just in all the ways will that one be? So
with the hard eights,
yeah.
And
my random segue here, but
well, and that's the thing too, is that like they didn't get a true measure of their team as a cohesive unit because they brought in Stefan, who played great. And like we talked to Adam last week about how great Stefan actually is, and he's so good, and he wants to take him with him to Premier League next season, all this and that. But like Riley, he won mixed doubles this past weekend at the PPA, and he's playing better than he ever has. He has to, the hard eights have to be feeling great about it, but they also didn't get to see how they performed with him in the first event. So this will, to them, be their little learning curve.
I just find the team chemistry thing a very fascinating aspect of it. The things that you can't, the intangibles.
Yeah.
I find that to be a valuable factor, no matter what sport, no matter what you're playing in. That's my two cents.
Yeah. I think especially with pickleball, most of the teams that win are the ones that assert their will faster than waiting. If you're playing and you're constantly waiting to get sped up at, or you're reacting to someone attacking you, and I think Riley, he sets the tone with his aura and his style and the way he plays. He sets the tone that he is an animal. Like, he's coming. He's going to dominate. Like, and I think that completely changes the feeling and aura of a team when you've got someone like that. And everyone else plays much more loose and free because they know like he's going to just be clawing and attacking everyone. So I think like that's going to be a huge difference maker for them. In my opinion, just confidence and mentally, that's just going to be such a big advantage for that team now.
Yeah, I agree. I think, it takes a little pressure off you. If you've got someone who can handle pretty much the whole court as well as Riley can. And so, it'll be interesting to see. I'm very, very interested to see how this supplemental draft goes and what changes will be made. I mean, like, you never know. Like, I don't know what all the team owners are thinking. It benefits them to be quiet about it and to make a calculated decision over weeks and weeks of planning and thinking about it. And so I will be interested to see how many teams actually do decide to make a change, and then what happens in Daytona because of it. Mm-hmm. So that's it. Anything else before we shut this thing down this week?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, I love it. Dude, you guys, I loved Colin reacting to the hecklers in the crowd. That's the last thing. And I think that everyone's been talking about that because I just think that's such a fun and entertaining thing that, I mean, my sport, it's like if you were to compare it to beach volleyball, it'd be like mid-serve guys are yelling at you, calling you names, saying things about whatever, like the whole time you're playing. And so I think that the crowd gets more involved. Players learn how to like deal with it and use it to their advantage, and it just becomes so entertaining. I'm a huge fan.
Do we? Because I was at the last MLP, I was at the PPA this weekend as a spectator, and I noticed there is, and there always has been at these pickleball events, when somebody's serving and the play is happening on the court, there's a hushed tone throughout the audience. And then as the point is over, or if something wild happens during the point, the audience gets more animated and active. I want to see it more like the 16th hole at the Phoenix Open, where someone's, pulling back for their serve, and someone who's rooting for the other team is like, bah! Like,
exactly.
I like that type of rowdiness, and I think it creates more of a dialogue between the players and the fans on that level. I just don't know where the line is, and obviously, like, you want people to play their best and you want people to perform, but at a pro level, if you've got a fan chirping in your ear on your serve, you should be able to tune that out, and tell there's a moment where you can look at the fan and do whatever Colin did, give him the shush and the wave.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was just an article about that in the New York Times or something about how pickleball will never be like the formality of tennis, which
we don't want
is
it to be
part of the draw. Exactly, which is part of the draw of it. So to your point of like distinguishing nuances, obviously they're different sports, but I think that is a fun factor of like including the crowd a little bit more and not having it be like tennis in that way. Like that's what makes it fun. People should be able to. I'm with you on that one. Maybe that's the volleyball background in me, but I think the crowd should be involved.
Here's something I did notice last MLP is that the teams would run onto the court. The teammates not playing would run onto the court after an amazing rally. And high five and stuff like that. I don't love it. Like,
I don't love that part.
Keep them off the court, because maybe you on the court, like this is your momentum. You want to keep it for the team. And I don't know, maybe there's a ruling where the players on the court can go to the sideline for a certain amount of time, but you only have like a 10-second shot clock to serve the ball once it's in your hand, or I don't know what you come up with, but I thought it stopped the flow a lot.
I agree with that. And like you would never see that in volleyball or soccer, the people on the sideline running in to, for a goal or for anything. I mean, I think I'm with you on that. I think
the players on the court have to run out or they would have to run to them on the sideline.
Off the court. If they want to celebrate with them, they have to get off the court. Those guys can't come on the court with like the whole team management, team ownership, everything. But like
even then, keep it on the court.
Yeah, but I also don't think it's going to happen as often. Like if you served, you scored an amazing point, the ball's back in your hand, you're not sprinting over to the sidelines to hug like your teammate before running back to serve your next serve. Like that's just like how often, unless something truly incredible happened, at which point I want to see you do that.
Yeah.
But if it's like a minimum, like something or other that's not like too profound, like just maintain gameplay.
Yeah, we had to implement a 12-second rule once the ball was dead because, first of all, people were massaging and manipulating that time in between and like wiping their glasses. Oh, let me get water. I have sand in my eye. Or talking to the ref or fixing the court that doesn't need to be fixed. And like just like they're like the masters of that in between, and the matches would go forever. So they had to implement like, all right, you got 12 seconds. So maybe that's something that they implement is like there's a time frame or a shot clock almost in between points.
Yeah. I mean, I like the celebration, but I can see it getting out of hand sometimes if there's and maybe there is a ruling that those guys are aware of, but I don't think so. So anyways, I don't even know. That was a different tangent. And we'll conclude this podcast for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we will be back next week with Inside Major League Pickleball. If you missed all of the action from a couple weeks ago in Mesa, you can watch it all on YouTube on Major League Pickleball's channel. Follow them on all social medias. And we'll be here next week, and we will see you in Daytona in about 5 weeks. Can't wait. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Later.